Okay, it's time for our next panel, you guys. As you may know, since the Russian invasion, also Gamescom has expressed its solidarity with Ukraine. For instance, Ukrainian developer studios could receive free booth spaces or free tickets for DevCon Developer Conference. Despite the war, many developers also have remained in their home country, like Irina Belous and Nika Avayan from Frogwares. I'm very happy because today they are here to tell their story, so please give them a warm welcome, both of them, as well as Chris Bratt from People Make Games.
Do you want to...
Hello.
Actually, I'm just going to start from over here to make the camera team's job a little bit more difficult. I was sorry. Okay, here we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session on the reality of making games in Ukraine right now, in the midst of a cruel and unjust invasion. I'll introduce both our guests again in just a moment, but first I'd like to say a couple of things, if you'll bear with me. I arrived at Gamescom yesterday and caught up with some friends and people in the industry. I'm sure you felt in the conversations you've been having this sense that Gamescom it's kind of back in full force. Dare we say it? Things feel like they've almost returned to normal. But I would ask you to challenge that belief whilst you're at Gamescom, because if you look around you, with a few notable exceptions, our Ukrainian peers and colleagues, brothers and sisters, aren't joining us here for this show, or at least not as many as we would hope for, because they're instead living through something that very few of us can actually hope to understand. Today marks the 183rd day of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. People continue to be killed, homes continue to be destroyed, people's lives continue to be forever altered by this conflict. And I think we've just heard it in the last talk, actually. The games industry has spent a long time trying to get the rest of the world to take us seriously, I suppose. We make this industry makes more money than the movie business, and that games aren't just distractions, they're social spaces, they're works of art, they matter. And if all of that is true, and of course, obviously it is, there's an added responsibility that I think comes with that wealth and with that influence. When Russian tanks rolled into Ukraine in February, the games industry came together and put its money where its mouth is and raised a lot of financial support, as well as other kinds of support, to help those worst affected by the conflict. And that needs to keep happening. The games industry can't look away from what's going on here. Which brings us on to Frogwares. Frogwares is a Ukrainian studio based largely out of Kyiv, the country's capital. Founded in 2000, you may know them best for their work on The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, a long-running series, and a little bit more recently, 2019, The Sinking City. And when Putin announced his invasion on February 24th, these people's lives changed overnight. Developers fled their homes, in some cases, as you'll hear, fled their country if they were able to. Others got used to the sound of shelling and gunfire outside their windows as they continued to work or tried to keep up with what was happening on the news. Some Frogwares staff joined the military and are themselves fighting back and trying to defend their country. I've made the mistake there, actually, of talking in the past tense. This is still happening. It is an experience that these people are still living through. And back in June, the publication I work for, called People Make Games, published a short documentary entitled The Video Game Developers Resisting Russia's Invasion, which takes a look at Frogwares and the lives of its employees over the last few months, and you can find that on YouTube. We actually interviewed Irina for that piece while she was staying in Lyon, in France, having recently evacuated from Ukraine. However, as you're about to hear, she's since moved back to Kyiv, and we'll be talking about that in just a moment. On that note, I'd like to ask you once again to give a huge round of applause to both our guests who've both traveled here from Ukraine to take part in this session. So yeah, please join me in giving a A big welcome to Frogwares Chief Operating Officer Nika Avayan and Release Manager Irina Belous.
Thank you. Hello.
And now I'm going to upset the camera team again. Sorry, and you know what? I've left my notepad, so I'll take that as well. They must love me right now. Apologies. So, I think it's customary at Gamescom to ask people that you meet at the conference and at parties and whatever about how was your journey? That's one of the first questions that comes up at this show. I suspect the two of you have a slightly different answer to that question. I'll start with you, Irina. How did you get to Gamescom this year?
So it was a long journey. We had to take a bus, then a plane, then a train, then a taxi to get to Köln. We actually, but yeah, as you said, that the answers might be different because this time I had to travel without my bird, so it was easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the problem was that we stayed at the border, Ukrainian-Polish border, for 11 hours.
11 hours?
Yeah, so we were almost late for the plane, but luckily the flight was delayed. This is the only time we were happy that the flight is delayed.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was almost 2-day trip.
Jeez.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So in total, about 2 days from leaving Kyiv to get to Köln.
Yeah.
Gosh. Nika, can you talk to us a little bit about, to go back to February, what that was like from your perspective? Do you remember, for example, when you first found out what was happening, like where you were, what was going on?
Yeah. Last week before the war was very tense because there was a lot of information on the internet about possible Russian invasion of Ukraine. And but you know, I can't say about everyone, but for me it was impossible. I didn't believe it, and I thought that it's just impossible because we're living in the 21st century. How it's possible that one country can strike another country in the center of Europe? It's just impossible. It can't happen. But you know, it happened, and I live in a special, let's say, special place. It's a small village, Horinka, near Bucha, between Bucha and Kyiv, and 3 kilometers from us, there is another village, Hostomel. It's actually a small town with a small airport, and all it started there. At 4 o'clock a.m., February 24, we woke up from the explosions. And right from the window of my house, we could see these explosions. And afterwards, we learned that Russian helicopter troopers landed in the airport, and they tried to capture the airport. And you know, the worst part of all this was the lack of reliable information. We couldn't understand what's going on, what situation is right now in Hostomel. One information that they already captured the airport, and right after that, that armed forces of Ukraine liberated the airport. And ups and down all the time. And another information that from Belarus, Russian troopers column of 60 kilometers are moving to Kyiv, and Kadyrov Chechen troops are already in Hostomel, and in 3 days they will just take Kyiv. And we're nearby here, 3 kilometers away from that situation, and we even don't know where the Russians are located at that time, and in what point they just can open the house of your door of your house and enter. So yeah, and the situation gets worse because from Bucha, which they took almost at once, and another small village, Mashun, which were razed to the ground the first day, and not a single house stayed surviving there. They started to bomb Horinka, actually, yeah. And this bombardment was all the time, and it started to be very dangerous to stay there, and we took a decision to evacuate. I left Horinka 6th of March with the family of my brother. My brother, his wife, his 3 children, 6, 8, and 14 years old, and also my 6-year-old mother and me, 7 people in one car. And we moved to Western Ukraine, and after that through Hungary to Germany.
It wasn't that far from Köln, actually, right? That you ended up.
You know, it took 6 days to because the roads were, there was a traffic jam. A lot of people was on the road, flying out from the country because it was horrible. It was impossible to stay there. And my sister was in Germany that time, and she found us a place to stay. And after 6 days, yeah, we were kind of safe in Germany. And yeah, my brother with his family is still there. It's a good place for kids because they are starting to integrate. They attend school, and it's a good for the refugees. But me, I took a decision to come back in mid-July because, you know, for me, I have my country, I have my house, and I don't want to reconcile myself with the idea that I can't live in my house, in my country anymore. It's kind of resistance, you know, and no one can make me leave the country and start somewhere else, something new, because I want to be in my country.
Before the session, when we were talking about that journey, you mentioned that shortly after your family had made that trip, that something happened to your brother's house where they would have been staying as well, right?
Yeah. I don't remember exactly. It was after a couple of days or 4 days. I think we were already in Germany. It was maybe March 12th, and we got information that artillery strikes had destroyed the house of my brother. He had been building this house for his family 10 years, and just in the beginning of February, they moved to the house, and the house survived only 1 month, and it is destroyed now. And so my brother's family has no place to come back at the moment with his kids. Yeah, so they are still in Germany.
Irina, last time we met was in Lyon, where you yourself had also evacuated. How similar an experience was that to what we've just heard in terms of the reasoning for you leaving and the journey? And yeah, what was that process like
I think
for you?
not so horrible as Nika, because I live in Kyiv. Actually, it's in northern part of Kyiv where we could hear all that was happening in Bucha, in Hostomel, but we were kind of safe. And actually, I didn't want to leave, but my relatives, they pushed me, like they made me go, and I decided to take my
What did
pet.
they say to you? What was the reason
Like,
for it?
you should be safe, you should be at least one person surviving from the family, which sounds weird. Yes, but okay. And I took my parakeet and left. And I didn't want that. I think I was crying for 2 days when I was packing because I didn't want to leave. But I left. Yeah, it also took me 2 days to get to Lyon. Actually, I made a stop in Poland, and after that I continued my journey.
When we met you in Lyon, I think at that point you'd already purchased your ticket to go back home.
Actually, I was planning on coming back home the moment I left home. So, you know, and then I was reading the news and thinking, when can I come back? When it is more or less safe? So, you know, the 9th of May, which is a holiday in post-Soviet countries, like the day of ending of the Second World War. So I decided that this day would be like maybe the most dangerous for the country, and after that I can safely come back home. So that's why I went back on 12th of May. And I had to kind of celebrate my birthday in Lyon instead of with friends and family.
Nika, you talked about that decision almost feeling like an act of resistance. Could you talk about that a little bit more? Because from a lot of people's perspective who haven't gone through something like this, like the idea of returning to a country that's under siege is a frightening thought, and probably not one that we can really properly understand. So yeah, what made you take that risk, I suppose?
Okay, I know a lot of people that couldn't stay abroad because the conditions are good, the attitude to refugees is good, and they receive any kind of support. But we were happy in our country. We built our lives, and we built our country and our career and our relatives, and we had our houses, our plans, and just staying abroad and trying to integrate, maybe to find a new job. For me personally, it's kind of, that I'm not doing the right thing. I should be with my country because, this is why he's bombarding these cities. Every big city is under bombardment every day. And you never know when the next missile will hit. And this is what he wants, to make us to be afraid and leave the country. And but we don't agree with this. I think that this is very high price to pay for your freedom, and I think that all of us are ready to pay this price.
Right. Irina, what has it been like since you've returned? How has it felt being in Kyiv again the last few weeks and months?
Well, when I returned, I think I was the most happy person because I could finally see my friends, my family, see my other pets, birds. So it's weird, but I could relax at last because I know the language, I know everything in this country, and so even it's in war, but I felt maybe safer. It's weird, but yeah. At least I see what's happening around, and then I can control the situation more or less. But in Lyon, I didn't know what is happening, so I had to read a lot of news, which was very exhausting. So in Kyiv, I felt even better. So yeah, and now in Kyiv, it's more or less like before the war, because the businesses are reopening. People are coming back, even kids. So if we don't take into account what is going on, it seems like the city is living normal life. Yeah.
And Nika, what about Frogwares as a studio? I'm obviously aware that people have been able to continue working, some more than others, depending on their situation. But what have the last few months been like as a game studio? What's that experience?
We can't say that the war didn't hurt the studio, though. Because when it started, we stopped working, and we started to see how our employees, some of them started this evacuation, and we met regular twice-a-day meetings and a Google Doc where everyone should go there and put that this is this date, and in the morning I'm located in this area, I'm safe, everything is okay with me, or I need some help to find a shelter on my way to Europe. And this communication was very intense, twice a day, and we just started to support people who wanted to move, to evacuate, and it lasted until I think end of March, and more or less by this time the situation became stable, and we restart our work. And it was a remote work. It was not easy because the tension was very high and the psychological situation was very difficult. A lot of our employees had big stress, and it is very stressful too. But we managed to start, and actually being an independent studio, and we don't depend to any publishers, we started to self-publish. And in this situation, we restarted our work, and we can move on. And I can't say that our business is under danger at the moment. We feel strong, and of course there are some challenges all the time coming up, but we stop, we recoup, we adapt, and we move on our development. It's okay. Yeah.
And Irina, is, as far as you're aware, like how safe is everyone within the Frogwares team? I know obviously some people have joined the military. We spoke to someone in our piece about that, and you might not know the details there. But I remember when we spoke to you that first time around, a couple of your colleagues were in Kherson, which has now been occupied by Russian forces, and it was harder to communicate with them. What's kind of the current status amongst the team?
Actually, almost the same. Like these two people are still in Kherson, and only today I read the news there is no electricity in Kherson. So every day we have some good news, like internet is back, or like today some bad news that they have no electricity. So yeah, they are still there. They cannot escape. Maybe they don't want. So yeah, and some guys are in the military. But I think that all the rest of the team is more or less safe in Ukraine or abroad. And it's much better, of course, than it used to be the first 2 weeks of invasion.
Sure. Yeah, I think you mentioned on a call, actually, Nika, in regards to the people in Kherson, the challenges of having to figure out how to stay in contact with them, how to get their salaries to them, because you end up needing to rely on cash in the end because of the setup in Kherson.
We're finding some ways to maybe to give them the cash or to transfer money, because they cannot use the Ukrainian cards anymore. But one of them just asked, he said that he has some cash at his disposal, and that's why we can just keep his salary in the company, and when everything is okay, it can be transferred later. So yeah, in any case, we were trying to find a way to help these people and to provide some support that we can.
How much has that become like a part of your job in terms of, from running a studio and thinking about all the challenges that game developers face anyway, to suddenly, like the things you listed before, just stuff that game studios aren't used to having to consider. Like, how big a part of the day-to-day is that? Like, just keeping on top of where is everyone? Like, what do people need?
More or less we know where is everyone already. It was in the first period of the war, but more or less we know if someone wants to relocate, it's singular cases already. It's not like everyone is moving. So it's more or less stable, and I can come back. But in any case, every day something rises, and we need to solve the problems. But there are not a lot, actually. Now it's more or less quiet and stable, so it's okay already.
And Irina, I know this is your first time at the show, I think, but what's it like being at Gamescom while the invasion is still happening back home? I imagine it's quite surreal, but what does that felt like these last few days?
Actually, as I said, yeah, I feel safer and more in control at home. So here, I'm worried.
Right.
Like now I can have fun here, talk to people, but I'd like to be home. Yes. Not that it's bad here; it's good here. But home is better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Nika, how have you found it? Is it strange being away again?
I'm concentrated on work. This is a part of my job, to be here, to tell to the industry, to the people from the industry, and ask you not to forget about us, because maybe some of you are maybe a bit tired of this situation, or you are getting used to this situation and you are forgetting about this. But, game industry, Ukraine still needs weapons, money, and information weapon is what the game industry can provide in this situation. Sharing information, talking about Ukraine, talking about war, because with your help, I'm sure that it will end sooner. We are not alone. We feel your support, but still keep sharing, please.
That reminds me, actually, something I've seen from Frogwares in particular, a lot of this through your social media channels, but also the recent Kickstarter that you did and the sort of video that went along with that. You have been talking to your player base about what's going on and the realities. Like I've noticed, for example, that you you're willing to say things like, "Hey, we're not going to be able to make games quite the same at the moment," and like that's just the reality of the situation. We still need your support. How have you found that kind of conversation and dialogue with the players over the last few months?
You know, we are open to our community all the time, and we do feel that we should share all this information. By the way, Ukraine has made some crowdfunding, and our employees from their pockets spent approximately 300,000 euros to support the country, to support the fighters, and to help other people. So in this situation, it's not about that we don't have enough money for development, but we're supporting, we're making some charity, and that's why this kickstarting is already more about sharing information, about telling our studio life, sharing this information with the community, not about money, but in this situation, money is necessary as well to help Ukraine, to support our employees.
Sure. Irina, how have you found that kind of new relationship with the audience of like Frogwares players and Frogwares as a studio suddenly having to talk about not just the games but all of the rest of what's happening?
You know, maybe if our community manager Sergei Aganisyan was here, he would talk about this more, give more detailed information. But as you know, it is prohibited to leave the country for the males from 18 to 60. But I know some information. You know, we have reached our goal of 70,000 in 6 hours. And we were totally surprised by the support that we got from our community. Yes, a lot of communication, a lot of support, a lot of good, kind words from there. And yes, I think that our relationship with our community is raising to a new level in this situation, because we do feel their support every day.
Great. And finally, just we do have a Q&A in, if anyone would like to ask any questions in just a moment. But I wanted to go back to what you said just a second ago, Nika, and do either of you have any thoughts or suggestions about what precisely the games industry can be doing to support Ukraine? I know, for example, Frogwares received a grant from Epic Games early on in the conflict, and there was a lot of money raised early, particularly in February and March. But what would you like to see specifically the games industry do? Like, what can people, if people in the room or watching now online, and they are in positions of power within the games industry, what can they do to help?
Again,
it's a big question.
It's war. It's war is going on, and yes, the country needs money and weapons and information weapons. This is what we expect that game industry can provide to us.
And Irina, how about yourself? Was it heartening to see like money being raised in those first few months from games companies in other parts of the world? Does that feel like an important thing that momentum needs to keep going?
Definitely, yes, definitely. Yeah, please don't get tired of us.
I think we have time for a few questions from the audience. Where is the microphone for that? Is that? Oh, hello. Hey, if anyone wants to ask a question, feel free to put your hand up, and Irina and Nika here. And if not, I can carry on asking a few more. Oh, yep, over here. Oh, it's a long walk. My continuing presence of being a nuisance to the camera team, I'm sorry.
Hello. I remember from other Gamescoms that there's really very big equipment of games like War of Warships, World of Warships, World of Tanks, etc. And I was just wondering if you think someone views this differently now this year. If I haven't looked if it's there this year, but I guess probably it will be.
I guess that is your question specifically about like Russian game developers being at the.
Sorry?
Is that specifically to do with like games developed in Russia being here, or to do with the games that are about war?
Well, it has two aspects. First of all, it's kind of playing war, and the other one is that there's a big Russian behind this firm. Yes,
Okay.
both.
You have any thoughts on? Does it seem strange to? Obviously, there are a lot of games about conflict in the industry. It's a big part of the.
Could it influence to the real situation? This is the question. No, I don't think so. The gaming world can be any kind of, about anything. But I think that countries has their politics, which are real, clever people who should run their countries and build relationship in the contemporary world. And if some game can influence to some politic to start a war, we need to think about this politics. Is his place in the government of that country or somewhere in the other place, isolation. In isolation he should be, because it's crazy. No.
I can speak only from my personal experience. Yeah, it's painful for me to see these kind of games, but only my personal.
Okay. Any other questions from the audience? If not, I wanted to ask actually, so you mentioned that the first couple of months at Frogwares were perhaps the most confusing and the least stable, with everything, trying to figure out where everyone was and what could be done to make sure that everyone was safe. Now that some amount of stability has been found, what do the next few months look like for Frogwares? What's the like? How much of an impact has it had on the plans for the studio? Like, what are your kind of goals in the coming months?
Okay, you want to answer, or I can? Because
we are developing the game, which is called Sherlock Holmes: The Awakened. It's actually a remaster of the old game, and we are concentrated on this development. We plan to release early 2023. And the development is going on actively, so yeah, we all this, like fundraising, developing, and everything.
A lot of job to do, and we could keep working. We keep working as developers, as a studio, Ukrainian studio, who supports his country, his employees, other people, our fighters, our armed forces of Ukraine. So yes, we keep fighting.
Do you see Frogwares and the game studio as an entity that can make money and pay taxes and pay wages? Like, do you see it as having a role in the conflict?
Yeah, sure. We have approximately 90 employees, and in this situation in Ukraine, yes, it's very good to have to keep the economy alive, to put some money as taxes in the economy of the country, because the first thing, we pay salaries and we support as minimum 100 families. It's 400 people. And also the taxes that can be used, and also these fundraising processes and supporting the army. Yes, it's very important for the country to keep his economy alive. And this is the additional that we can do for Ukraine.
And do you get the sense that that's other employees at Frogwares kind of have that feeling about work? Because I suppose one of the things, again, that we might find difficult to understand here is the idea of doing your day job whilst all of this is going on feels, again, like it would be very surreal and difficult and stressful. But is that part of what helps you carry on with like the going back to making video games and keeping Frogwares moving forwards?
You know, it's a balance. It's a balance that everyone somehow, if someone needs some support, we have a lot of communication with them, and people talk to each other, support each other. And by the way, last month, for the first time during the last 6 months, we made a milestone party, and approximately 30 people came and see each other face to face.
Wow.
Yeah. It was, you know, very emotional, very because we hadn't seen each other since February. In February, this war started, and yes, we decided that if possible, once a month, we'll keep doing these parties to give people possibility to talk to each other, to support each other, because you need this is kind of treatment also, yeah, to understand that you are not alone. You have these people around you, and you can come just to talk, to have a drink together, and it brings you to the reality that maybe, okay, this is not perfect today, but someday it will be okay, and you can come back to your normal life.
So I know most people are working remotely. Obviously, everyone is working remotely at the moment, and I think actually maybe Irina said this to me back in March, but that almost like COVID had laid a lot of the groundwork to be able
Thank
to
you, COVID.
transfer all those skills, which is a very strange thought. But does Frogwares still have a studio in Kyiv? Like
We have our office. We still have our office because we have a motion capture studio there, and we have some facilities there. And sometimes people go to the office just to have these meetings. So we still keep our office alive, and physical office, I mean. And yes, and if some people want, they can go to the office and work there. And I think that we have some equipment there for QA team. Yeah,
Lot
Ira.
of equipment, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Consoles, test kits, servers. So yeah, the office should keep coming.
Sure. And you mentioned before that, obviously right now you're working on a remaster, and the Kickstarter been very successful. I wondered, has the obviously we've said already, the invasion has changed the reality of Frogwares as a studio. It's not going to be able to operate in exactly the same way that it did before. To what extent does that change the kind of projects that you're taking on, or you're thinking about taking on? Does it mean that you're looking for kind of smaller games to be working on whilst things feel a little less stable, or yeah, to what extent has it changed the things you're making?
Yeah, it's maybe the first thing that it's about hardware, you know. To make bigger games, employees need better hardware to do so. But some of them had evacuated to other cities, other countries, and they couldn't take their equipment with them. And yes, we switched to smaller games which do not require that much hard equipment to do so. So yes, we are making now smaller games, and maybe, of course, we'll come to more ambitious projects where the war is over. But for the wartime, is the best way to survive, to keep delivering, to still make games, to develop games. Yeah.
Well, we will certainly be here to play them. I think that's as for the session. Thank you so much to Nika and Irina, and hopefully, if you've taken anything away from this session, we need to keep listening. We need to keep watching. There are two people that have travelled from Ukraine here to ask us to do that, and we certainly need to. So yeah, a big round of applause to Nika and to Irina, please.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris, and also a very special thank you to you, Irina and Nika, for coming to Gamescom despite the war and all that happens and has happened. I wish you all the best for the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.